Hey everybody, welcome to the Jess and Scott and You show. All right, Scott, let's play that open.
We've got all of our favorite people joining us live.
I know, right? Oh, it is wonderful. And there'll probably be a few more people that pop in as well. So welcome to all of you as you join us. So Scott, I'm ready to introduce Stephanie and Terry. Are you ready? Stephanie gives owners a new way to measure the value of their business using a method called financeability. She helps owners understand the value of their organization before they get involved in financial decisions so that they are dealing from a position of strength. Knowing your worth is always a good thing, both in life and in business. So, Stephanie, what else would you add to that in the lens of our show tonight, the self-mastery and lifelong learning?
Well, it's very funny, as we talked about. One of the things that I'm really trying to encourage business owners particularly to do is to kind of step past the fear that they have of a subject that they think is very complicated or that they don't want to really learn about, and put themselves into a position of power by learning. But I really do believe that as you understand more about yourself, you know what you know, but you also know what you don't know. That puts you in a better position to go forth and either get the knowledge you need or to decide, okay, I'm going to hire someone to bring that particular element into my team or whatever. To me, knowledge is kind of the base. You have to understand what you know and then find a way to add on the pieces that you're missing.
Love it. And then we're going to come in with Terry also. Now, this is not in his Google Plus profile yet, but we worked something out, and you and you totally should take a look at his profile and see all of the things that he is doing to improve his own skills and share knowledge with other people on Google Plus and in his communities. Terry is an enthusiastic promoter of new educational technologies and approaches and actively pursues learning. See for yourself. You can actually go to Terry's YouTube channel, which offers tutorials, ideas for abundance, and live composition conceptual music. Terry's tech and Photoshop shows are also listed there. He's a guru of learning something, really something, and using his ideas to continue exploring, sharing, and most of all, having a lot of fun. All right, what would you add to that, Terry?
Well, the fun is the first thing anyway. This is all stuff that interests me and has my attention because I love learning about this kind of stuff. You know, like some people say, start with what you're already good at. Well, there's also start with what you already love doing and what you love learning about. If you love learning about something, then you've got some kind of a passion there, and that's a good sign that perhaps pursuing something interesting. I've gone down some tracks where I saw it became all enamored with some topic area and got really deep in it, and then finally said to myself, I'm never going to be an expert in this topic area like people I know. But it did make me aware enough that whenever I met people who were that kind of expert, that level of expert, I could carry on a cogent conversation with them, where I didn't feel like I was babbling, and continue my learning. So, I mean, like, you know, I'm an armchair physicist and have been for years, and I can hold my own in many conversations on lots of different areas of physics and cosmology and nuclear physics and particle physics and you name it, and have been able to for many, many years because I've been into that for a long time. Did I go to science? No, I went to the arts. I went to fine art. In fact, wound up incorporating some of the ideas I learned in physics into my fine art, doing multimedia and electronic music and building my own modules and doing all that stuff in the old days. So,
well, and even in the new days, you're still
even in the new days, I'm still
that.
doing that. Yeah.
There was a while there that you were doing a hangout on air every night or 5 times a week. Isn't that true?
Yes. I was doing that in order to do a full immersion, in order to really learn a lot about a lot of the ins and outs, the technology, looking at the camera, being comfortable speaking into a camera, and getting the lighting right, getting all these little things done. And I didn't want it to take 6 months. I wanted to have at least that part out of the way fairly quickly. It's a good thing I did it when I did, because then we got hit with a ton of bad weather here. All the wires got soaked, and my internet quality went down the tubes. And so I got forced into a 3-week vacation. but now things
Hey,
are coming around. I'm finally getting my
can
bandwidth back.
can you send some of that vacation this way, out to the West Coast? Maybe not. Be careful what you ask for,
Yeah,
right?
be careful what you ask for sure.
How far out in the stratosphere can we go? What do you think, Scott?
Okay, this is my turn. Well, I gave this a little bit of thought, and it occurred to me that one goes to college and then one graduates from college, and maybe that's when lifelong learning actually begins. So I thought a little bit more deeply about college itself and what is the purpose for college. And one of the things is that you go to college, I think, so that you learn how to learn. And when you graduate, presumably you have not just studied for the test, but you've studied so that you can be a sponge and know how to absorb knowledge. A second reason for going to college is because it takes you out of the environment in which you grew up. So now you're in an entirely new context. You meet people who you've never run across that type of person before, and you have to redefine yourself in terms of the world, and that's a big deal. You have and it's usually only 2-3 times in a life where you can really re-engage yourself, reinvent yourself, get a new context. And going to college is one of them, maybe getting married is another, who knows what other. And then the third thing is when you graduate from college, you might not have a lot of experience under your belt, but you've got a snapshot of at least book learning, and you're up to date in terms of everything that's in your specialty. So then, the very second you get that diploma, the clock starts ticking, and there is this decay, and Terry can talk to us about nuclear decay and how that works and how quickly that goes. And at that point, lifelong learning kicks in, doesn't it? And that is the topic of tonight's and presumably if you have any post-high school education, you've learned how to learn, what do you do then? So that's my stratosphere.
I have a couple of responses, how about this, to what Scott says. I agree with you that college should be a place to learn how to learn, but I think that's part of the problem, frankly, today, is that it should be, but it's not. And for lots of reasons, which we're not going to talk about here. I agree, though, and I really love that you brought this up with your second point, that what college is for a lot of people is kind of this eye-opening experience to the fact that the world is not this tiny little circle where they grew up, but it's everybody else that existed outside, and they're all coming from their tiny little circles too. And so it's almost a safe place to kind of reinvent yourself, as Scott says, because everybody's going through the same thing. You're not taking as much risk, if you will, because it's happening to everyone. And I would say that you're right in the sense that you've only got a few opportunities to do that in your life. I would tell you, as someone who moved overseas and ended up marrying someone who's from a different culture and speaks a different language, that is one of those opportunities. When you have to go somewhere and you don't even know how to get to the bathroom, you can reinvent yourself. But it's not always pretty. But yes, I think that to me is the principal function that college is serving now. And I really think that where we need to help people as they come out is with the learning how to learn piece. That's what seems to me to be the biggest problem we've got now. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, as a former college professor, I definitely concur that a lot of students don't get that learning how to learn component out of their experience of college. I think adult students perhaps get more of that. But younger students who are pretty busy discovering themselves, like Scott was pointing out, and breaking through a lot of different walls of their own personal journey to stretch out and find out what the universe, their universe is going to look like. They have a lot of challenges. They are lifetime learners already, in a sense, but they just haven't systematized it, I guess you might say. They haven't gotten it to a point where they understand that this is going to be what they do the rest of their life, is stretching and learning, and it's just that it's because it's in this formalized environment of the college thing at first. It has this veneer of temporariness, I think, this kind of look like this is going to be over with when I graduate. or this is over with when I get out of class. When I finish this class, I get done with this darn trigonometry class. At least I don't have to think about math anymore until pre-calc or whatever, Or the history classes, once I'm done with ancient history, won't have to think about that stuff anymore. But as it turns out, if you realize that you were actually learning how to do research, and that was even more important than what you learned. You were learning how to do research, how to stretch out and find out good information and reliable information.
Does learning how to learn kick in when you're in the graduate school or when you do your doctorate?
Can I say I don't think it occurs in any school, and I don't have a graduate degree or a doctorate, so I might be totally wrong. But having gone to school right out of high school, taking 10 years off to run a business, start a business, run a business, sell a business, and then going back to school to finish my degree because it was important to me, what I realized was I was glad I finished because it was a goal of mine, but I think I would have learned the same stuff without going back. Because that's my personality, because that's what I want to do, because I am interested in continuing to go forward. But maybe that's a personality thing.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I have a different, somewhat of a different take. I think that maybe what happens in formalized education is you build a knowledge base. Okay, so you have access to all these facts and this information, if you will. And then what you have to do is you have to let your experience and your self-knowledge catch up to the knowledge base that you have so that you can actually put those two things together to apply them to your life. Because as a wise man named Phil Boyer has said several times, and plenty of other people, not just Phil, but he said it very recently, knowledge plus experience is wisdom. And that's when your knowledge actually becomes useful. If you just know a bunch of stuff, but you got no clue how to apply it, that's not very helpful. Unless you go on, a trivia show, then it's good.
So how long does it take, Stephanie, before those two lines intersect, the knowledge and the experience, and then you can say that you've arrived?
Well, I think this speaks to Terry's point, which is I think the goal is to never arrive.
Yeah.
Because if you see it as a goalpost, then you've always got this kind of all I'm doing is building my knowledge base, and if I just add one more fact on the pile, then I'll get there.
Exactly. That's that artificial wall of once I get to the other side, I'm done.
Right.
Lie, which is not true at all. It's not at all, and yet that's the impression I think a lot of people get while they're in the formal education systems, is that once I get that piece of paper, I'll be done, and then I can just get a job with this piece of paper, and then they're going to train me anyway, and then once I get that promotion, I won't have to learn that stuff anymore. Blah blah. It's all these darn barriers without realizing. No, this is forever. You're stuck with this forever.
I have a question. Was that true at one time? Was that true in the 1960s or 70s or 80s, but no longer true? Or has it always been that way?
1820s.
1820s.
No, I don't think so.
Because at one time we had one employer for a lifetime, and now we've got 7 careers, right?
Well, yeah, up from 3. Yeah, it was still 3 10 years ago. Now it's up to 7. And well, even when it hit 3, people started getting the point that this was a lifetime learning thing. But the 3 career thing, most people were going back to college for that second career and that third career, and they were getting the training you needed to have the piece of paper. And it was still very much about that piece of paper. Now that it's transcended even the 3, there's no way you can go to college 7 times and get a piece of paper 7 times. More and more of the careers are, well, for one thing, there's more self-made jobs. There's more jobs that are actually people creating a new job position inside their existing company by being innovative and being really valuable, and because they want to reach out and help the whole group. They start getting a group consciousness about what being important in your organization means, and so you're having this different kind of a mindset about just what it means to be an active participant in life, I guess you might say that. And with Google, Google taught us a huge lesson that you can search and learn anything. Like I do a lot of my main income source is computer programming, and for websites, and I don't know most everything. I had somebody ask me some question on something that was, if that would have been area I was actually doing that for a client, I'd know about it. But I never had a client ask me to do it, so I don't know about it. But if I needed to know about it, I know I could get on Google and I could hit a few forums in a few places and be an expert in about a week.
Yeah. So, thank you for saying that, Terry, because I'm reminded, my father, God bless his soul, who worked until he was 79 years old, incidentally, as a specifications writer, as an architect. He said the key is not to know everything, the key is to know where to look it up. And
Yeah,
this
where to
was,
look it up.
and he didn't know how to type, and he never became literate on computers. Of course, this was a long time ago, and yet that's what he did, and he was successful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Well,
nothing new under the sun, right?
see, what he knew was the magic elixir that a good librarian, if they found somebody who was really receptive, would teach them how to start with the encyclopedias and the general references and break that down to specifics and then go to specific, smaller, more narrow niched references from the general references by learning the keywords that were going to be the topic areas in those narrower net references. And from those references to narrow it down further into specific books and journal entries and papers that were written, because now you're learning the language, starting broad and narrowing down. Well, now that's what people do in Google a lot. They try to guess what those keywords are that are going to lead them, and when they do a search, Google shows them what these related searches are and what other people are looking for. So it helps in people learning basic research skills, and I think that's kind of one very interesting thing about the day and this era that we're in now, and year 25 or something of the internet.
Well, and so that makes me, here's my first takeaway of the night, and that is, and I'm going to repeat this because it's something I try and live by, and I find myself not, and you guys may find yourself in similar situations. We don't need to know it all. We need to know where to find out about it. And I think when we're thinking about where to find it, especially as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or the head of a small business with a small team, we take it upon ourselves to have to know it, to be that expert more often than not. And in some cases, that spreads us a little too thin, where in fact, taking Terry's advice, I can learn about it in a week enough to know if I can do it or not do it. Or, to take some of Stephanie's thoughts and be able to say, hey, I know what I know, and how cool is it that I had some of this stuff and I know where I'm trying to go, and I can find something to connect the dots in the middle to make the experience match up with my knowledge. So I think that might be our first really solid takeaway of this evening.
Mm-hmm. But I'm not trying to give the impression that you can be invited onto, one of your shows and I don't know anything about the topic, but in a week I can become an expert enough to talk about lifetime learning. Necessarily. Maybe I could. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're
well, now I know we're going to invite you on when we talk about quantum physics.
That is a given. That is a given. There's just-in-time learning, but then there's also Stephanie's wisdom, and you have to know something about it so that you know the context. You know enough about it so that even know the right questions to ask, right?
Yeah.
That's the key. What are the questions that I need to be asking? So let's take a look at a comment here from Kristen, which I think this is a fabulous comment. Because the knowledge has always been inside of you, all knowledge is innate. We just need the right voice and sometimes to help us remember.
Well, I will point out that all nonsense is innate also, because it's the same core. Neurons contain that universe of silliness. And so it's already there, just waiting for us to connect the dots and map it out in our neural networks, right? But so again, the experience and the ability to take care and verify one's information is kind of important nowadays. And I think that's going to be interesting. I'm almost seeing a trend in the direction of knowledge verification becoming more and more important to people, not just to get your papers right for college, not for that reason at all, but as a lifetime learning thing. How look at Snopes. Snopes is so valuable. How many things have people sent me to go with the "is this true?" thing, and I just select a little bit of the paragraph that they've sent me, and I just do a Google search for it, and invariably the top post entry is a Snopes entry showing me that this has been something bogus that's been in circulation for 20, 30 years, or...
Well, so let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about knowledge verification, because one of the things that I am finding with people that I work with every day, and some of my peers, and some of people in other networks and other industries, what I am finding is they find like-minded people and they stick with that knowledge, and they don't get out of that knowledge. They have no desire to expand out of that, and I think that's a really dangerous place to be, that big comfortable zone. And I don't know how do we know if we're in that place? How do we know? We've got to jog ourselves out of that.
If we pinch ourselves and see if we're still alive.
If we're not being silly anymore.
Yeah, if we're not being silly anymore. Getting too close a circle around us.
Yes.
It's called siloing.
Siloing, yes.
Right. This is the Kool-Aid argument, right? Like, we joke, a lot of people on G+, and I do it too, we joke we've had the Kool-Aid, right? But when you stop and think about that, that's probably not exactly what you'd want to do, because it didn't work out so well. And I think that what we're talking about is the similar sort of isolation, when it starts to be, instead of we're sharing education amongst ourselves and we're really all growing, and it starts to be either one person starts to dominate the conversation, and if you don't believe or accept their knowledge, then you're out, or, you know, 2 or 3 people maybe are controlling the flow of information. It's hard. I think it does become harder for people to realize that they're getting filtered info because it's people that they trust. I think that may be where Kristen's comment comes in, though, because I think if you've really done some work and gotten to know yourself, somewhere you're going to feel it. You're going to be like, no, that just doesn't sound right to me. And if you're still in the phases where you can go out and look for what you're talking about, Terry, this independent verification, that might set off some alarm bells for you, and you say, you know what? It didn't sound right, and I checked it out, and it's not right. So maybe now's the time to get more information myself before I continue just kind of blindly accepting what's being told.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
You have to be an independent thinker that way. You know, it's not. It's like Frank Zappa said, one has to support an unpopular opinion every now and then, and you have to go ahead and and be willing to say, well, all my friends say this, and everybody around me seems to think this, but let me just look. You got to do that devil's advocate thing a little bit once in a while, and just go ahead and look in the other direction and see if there's any arguments that hold water at all. Because the true answer might be somewhere in the middle, or by looking at both sides, you may find the third answer that's really a hot one, and that's where some new creative ideas may come from.
Things are changing so much, and there's so much new coming online. If you're just standing still, you're going to be left behind, right?
Well, yeah.
That brings up another point, though. Learning skills versus growing yourself. Aren't those two different types of learning that maybe we should also think about? Because I think I always need to be learning new skills, but I also need to be growing as a person and trying to fill whatever my role in this world is that I'm defining for myself.
Yeah, well, learning skills might be like learning the logical fallacies, so that you can recognize them when you see them in an argument. Becoming,
I'm even talking about like how to do a job. I'm a machinist, and I'm going to be the best machinist, and I'm going to know everything about that machine. Or I'm a social media expert, and I like Google+, so I'm going to know everything and be the first to tell everybody every little change because that's what I know. There's that kind of learning. But then there's the kind where I would put most of all of us here in this panel and most of our audience, and I believe everybody in our audience, that they believe that there's something out there that they're learning that is beyond the skills they're trying to do their job, that they want to learn from, grow into, look for, maybe reinvent themselves.
My take on that would be more in the sense that as you open yourself up to this idea that you don't know everything and that you need to go look for data elsewhere, that already is a huge step that a lot of people never take. Right? And so if you're willing to take the, quote, risk of admitting you don't know everything, I think on the path of personal development, that's a huge leap forward. And maybe to the extent that people are able to get some positive feedback about that, i.e. they learn a new opinion, or they're able to come up with their own independent opinions, it reinforces that process. And that, at least for me, that's part of what's cool, is that now it's not embarrassing to say, gosh, that's a really great question. I don't know. Even if I'm the person who's there serving the client, it's okay for me to say to a client, that's a really great question and I'm not sure, but you know what? I can go and find out. It goes back to what we said at the beginning. I don't know, but I know where to look.
Yep, absolutely. To me, that's one of the most valuable skills one can get, is the ability to say, I don't know, but I know how to find out.
Hey, we have another Frank Zappa fan out there.
There's a community that I'm a member of, and a bunch of people are, where you could define what you would talk about if you were invited on a show like this for Hangouts, and you could put a little, resume type of a thing. And I just started to write out that, what I don't know, I can find out, and that's pretty much defines what I'm about. and because that to me is an important thing, that I get good at that kind of research tools and get good at taking my time and researching something and reading about it and learning. But then again, I'm a voracious reader. I'm a voracious learner. I watch all kinds of YouTube videos on just a crazy range of how-to subjects.
How we coaches. I was wondering if there might be a lifelong learning coach, and the idea is you propose something, and then the lifelong learning coach will hold you accountable, and at the end of whatever it is that you're doing, they will grade you on it. And if you did well, it could be made public, and if you failed, then you could say, well, let's just not tell anyone about it. But the credibility of the lifelong learning coach is that they wouldn't have grade inflation, because that would be the substitute for a degree from a college. You'd say, I was certified by this lifelong learning coach or this organization, and if they say it's true, it's got to be.
All right, I'm going to Google Helpouts right now and seeing if I can get myself as a lifetime learning coach.
Bingo.
Well, Scott, that's an interesting question, but that's something that is happening, right now. There are a ton of programs out there. There's all kinds of certifications that you can get to be a project manager, to be all kinds of different letters you can put behind your name that theoretically put you in a category not of lifelong learner, but that adapt you better for a specific role within a company or as an independent consultant. And it's funny because Jess and I talked about this before. The biggest issue I see with those is how do you create an accurate assessment of someone's knowledge? How do you figure out if somebody really absorbed the info, or if they did like some of us, me, did in school and took the book the night before and went, let me read it 5 more times so that then tomorrow I can spit it back out on the test.
Yeah.
Well, the answer to that is simple. I already found out how to do a Vulcan mind probe. And,
on a Google Help?
It's a video on it on YouTube, how to do a Vulcan mind probe. And I tried it, and I think it worked. If the person, when they woke up, they didn't remember anything, but.
I love that, and that actually, from that conversation, Stephanie, that's where my questions came from. So when I think about if I'm going to do business with somebody, because if people are doing business with people, how do I convey that knowledge? How do I take everything that I'm learning and being okay with not knowing everything and being able to package and present that in a way that is helpful to the person that I'm talking to, that can give them maybe an idea to help them connect their dots so that they can grow and take an idea back? And am I there when they need them for the follow-up of that information to help them if they're missing a dot or looking for a little bit more information, being able to be that resource? And then, I would love to be able to turn around and let them think of something that would help me based off of our conversations so that I would have the opportunity to do the same thing and learn from them. And I would do business with somebody like that over somebody who just has, who can show me all of their degrees or all of their papers or all of the things that they have accomplished. And I am a feeler by nature, and so that is also a filter that I am aware that I have. And have I been burned by that? Sure. But have I also learned a lot from that? Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and this was the question that you and I kind of brought up is it a personality thing? In other words, is it just that we have different learning styles and some people need that approach, they need the human approach a lot more than the fact-based approach? Or is it more something that if you can develop a common framework, which is where I'd like to take it, you can develop a common framework and you give the person that you're working with the language that they need, because I think a lot of times the issue is not the concept itself, it's the way that it's presented or the language that's used to present it. If you give them the concept they need in a package, the language that they can understand, there's no reason that it wouldn't make sense to them. People are inherently intelligent. But then, like you, my concern is I can help you understand it, but then how do I help you apply it? Because I don't, frankly, this is the whole teaching people to fish as opposed to giving them a fish. I would love my clients to be able to go off and never need me again, because that would mean I did a really good job. But how do you know that they've done that? And it doesn't seem to me that there's a test or an easy way for that other than them knowing for themselves, yes, I feel satisfied that I know how all these dots fit together.
Well, this actually points out a part that I think this is going to end up going to, if I have anything to do with it, which is how to fit this into an organizational system, like an open office type of thing, or what would they call it? What do they call those
space.
things now? Open spaces.
Open space or holacracy.
Holacracy or
lattice, right? Yeah.
Where you're trying to get the whole team, the whole group involved in learning how to be lifetime learners and being project-oriented as a group, being end result instead of just this defined role or defined position, that getting everybody to put their best part or the thing that they're best at into the project to make it so that something can happen. And for that, you're going to have to get everybody in line with some types of thinking processes. However, the idea of the coachee, the subject that you're coaching ever being done with you, where you can really let them go and they're done and they're finished, I don't think that's not ever going to happen. Somebody actually got help from a really good professor, a really good teacher, a really good coach who was a learning-oriented coach. That's going to be valuable forever because they'll always give them new directions and new ways that they can think about things and approaches and ways of doing research and ways of carrying on conversations, like just the subject of learning how to be a good debater. A lot of people, the debate's kind of like this subject area that's kind of died. Who does debate anymore?
Oh man, you're speaking to my heart there, because my son is terrific, and I have never met anyone who can hold his own as well as he can. And I'm just begging him on the one hand to take up debate, on the other hand I'm thinking, no, don't, because you're so good now. I'll never have a chance if he actually figures it out.
These comments about reinvention. I believe it's possible to reinvent ourselves at any given moment in time. In the practicality of life, the opportunities are rare. Even using the turning of a new year, a person tries to reset themselves, a lesser version of reinventing. That was a great contribution, Johnny. And then Mia piped in when we were talking about reinvention. As the queen of reinvention many times over, I love this. Yes, never arrive. The one thing that I always say is that the blessing of the downturn of the economy is that many people reinvented and are in a career or are now in a business that they love. Wow.
Reinvention keeps you young. It really does.
It really does.
That was very cool, and it makes me think of something that that other people that we all know and love. Dennis Duce likes to talk about serendipity, for example. Yeah. And what's the role? I think Gail asked this question in the comment stream too. What's the role of life happening in learning? because it's true, you know, you can plan all these things out and you can say, I'm going to take this course and all that good stuff, but at a certain point, life kind of just happens to you, and sometimes the fact that it happened to you, like the economic downturn, at that moment is the catalyst to put you in a whole different category of learning.
I love that. And I'm not going to read Gail's thing because you summarized it very nicely, but I wanted to make sure it was popped up here for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it that life happens. And you know what? When we think we're on a roll and when we think we're in the flow and we think everything's going to happen, we kind of get reminded there's more to do. Something else is going to happen. And I actually love that part of it, whether they're the little things or the big things. I think that's what else, you know, that also helps us make sure our priorities are always in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got this little book I've been working on for some time, and instead of saying life happens, the basic theme of the book is that the universe happens. And that when things happen, when they come into being, that's the universe happening into being. And that's just kind of a way of feeling like you're part of this huge whole is when you start realizing that, well, gee, I'm a part of this. I was manufactured by this universe so that it could observe itself.
I like that. I
like that a lot.
That. Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
that's a whole new, not only a show, that's a series.
That's a whole series. I agree. Now we've got to go to another part of our program before we get to the +2 takeaway, and we talk about social media explained. One thing in the green room, and I was only half kidding, yet I was sort of serious. Is there a book that you have handy that you have read recently that helped you learn help you learn something that you would recommend to another person?
Yes.
Okay, go Stephanie.
It's Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. It's actually not a new book. It's by Carol Dweck, and it's from 2006. But it's something that's actually I've seen in several other books. For example, a book by Paul Tough called How Children Succeed, which is an excellent overview of the problems in education today. It touches on a lot of the same things. The main takeaway from this book is the issue is not your knowledge base or your experience base per se, it's your mindset. If you approach your life with this mindset that I can only learn so much, or I'm only this smart, or I'm only this talented, then you're never going to be as successful as if you approach life from saying, sure, I fell down, I made a mistake there, I could have done better, but I know where to go look for the info. So to me, this book kind of exemplifies this thread that we've been talking about all night of, I don't know, but at least I know where to go look.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. How about you, Terry? Do you have one?
Well, recently my reading, because I was off the internet, and so I got knocked into writing more, and I started saying, well, you know, I maybe should get more information and knowledge about story structure and things. So I've been reading a bunch of different books about writing. And yeah, in particular about story writing, because this, for instance, I've got to finish this book I started and fix some of its structural problems. And
right on.
So yeah, so that's my latest thing. Is in my own lifetime learning thing is I'm becoming a better writer by understanding some things about how some of the methods of writing and stuff. But being me, and a fine arts school graduate, I'm also looking at that always little bit from my brain is saying, where can I break this rule? You know.
Oh,
hi, Phil.
Rule breaker. That's right. You got it. You got it, Scott. For me, I can never choose one thing, and these are two books that, one, Heather Crafter was telling me that she had read this, Kiss Me Like You Mean It. I think that's a fabulous book, and by the way, it does apply to your personal relationships, and you can apply that to your business life as well. And then another one that I really love is In the Shadow of the Shaman, where it talks about your personal journey and how connection to nature is so important, and that when we miss out on that connection to nature, we actually lose the opportunity to get in touch with some of our creativity by taking a break, by stepping out and letting our brain do what it does, and allowing ourselves to explore the part of us that's not connected. So those are the ones that I've got on my that I totally and completely love and pull out over and over again. Besides all the ones that we're reading to show you for these wonderful +2 takeaways lately, right, Scott?
Mm-hmm. Nice transition. I
Thank
applaud you. You do this so well.
Oh,
There's a reason why it's called the Jess plus Scott show.
Oh, that was very nice of you. So we're actually talking about the Social Media Explained right now by Mark Schaefer, and Ray is in the house too, so he's going to like, I think, the fact that we picked this one next, and I actually bought this and read this for the show that he had where Mark Schaefer was a guest. We're going to talk about Social Media Explained, and we chose this when it came across our radar because it's amazing how much when we are in the space of social media and we are using something so much, how many people are still new to the idea of what it means to be a social business. And Social Media Explained allows us to take a step back and to ask some questions at a level that are more thoughtful and big picture than actually actionable and to-dos. So it was nice from that perspective. The quick introduction of the book is, I really think this is Mark's playbook, and it's broken down into 3 pieces. 5 things you need to know about social media marketing, the 5 most difficult questions you'll face, and an awesome case study that he uses to wrap all of this together. And so when we think about that, the first section, we're going to cover chapters 1 and 2 of the first section, the five topics piece. So in chapter 1, we just are reminded about the basic humanity of where we're at, the need to connect, how that we are looking for support both at work and at home, and that our friends and the people that we work with and the people that we connect to online actually are the ones that expand our world. And I thought that was really timely for our conversation about lifelong learning. In fact, that goes hand in hand, I think, in what we're talking about when we're talking about being connected people to people, whether we're growing, learning, doing business with each other, whatever that connection may be, bringing families together in community. Then at the next slide that Scott's going to move to, we're talking about he shares some information about that it's all interactive and immediate. And we take this for granted sometimes, especially if we have anybody that's younger than us that has a device that is in our lives. We take this for granted. And even those of us with children that don't have these devices yet but are in this world every day, we also take this for granted. So being able to know that when somebody recommends a book and you went, oh, I really like that person and I trust them and I know it, I can right there on whatever device I have go to a website, click a button, and it's going to arrive in my at my house in 2 days, or download to my Kindle right then waiting for me. That's pretty immediate, and we can actually grow and change and interact at such a fast pace that sometimes it's staggering and unexpected. Then the small interactions over time are really what add up. So we think about loyalty. What is that extra +1? We are referencing that people buy from people. We're learning how to use the technology to make that connection from a business perspective or a service provider of some kind, to find the audience and to help the people and to connect with the people that can connect us with the people that need our help. And when we think about that, one of the things that I was lucky enough to do recently was to share a presentation with a career coach, SIG, where we talked about the whole idea of what it means, how you use online technology to take conversations offline and actually turn them into more than just these connections in passing. And Dave Moore of the Moore Consortium, he brought up a really good point about the difference between customer service and loyalty and how they can be intertwined, but they're not necessarily intertwined. And it's those tiny actions over time where you're delivering in that consistency and you're delighting and providing value in such a way that people weren't expected, that before they know it, you're their go-to person, you're their go-to company, and that helps them make those decisions and continue to stay connected with you over time. And what I love about this is he uses the fact that somebody tattooed the Nike symbol on their foot. Cracked me up. Totally and completely cracked me up, because I know people that like brands so much and identify them, and that brand is a part of their life to the point that it is a part of who they are. And that's what a lot of brands are trying to achieve through experience or lifestyle or something of that nature. So when you think about this statistic right here, research showed that 57% of American social media users follow a brand on Facebook just because they have an affinity for the company. Okay, that to me was really amazing. One, I don't use Facebook very much. Two, I'm not using Facebook to follow brands, but I'm also not a typical user. And so to have that reminder as a company looking at this, that some people are staying connected with brands that they can connect with and know and want to think about, really makes us need to take a step back and look at the other places that we are online, the other things that we are doing, and are we able to allow a connection related to affinity, that these people want to be your buddy. So funny, every time when Hey Buddy popped into my head, when I was a kid, they had the My Buddy doll for boys and the Little Sister doll for girls, and so this song keeps going through my head as I was preparing this today, and now it gets to go through your head too, if you are lucky enough to remember that particular commercial and toy. When we talk about social media trends, that we don't want them to stop at the connection, and one of the things we find ourselves doing is we find ourselves as companies doing what's easy, not necessarily what's right. What's right is to go that extra mile and make sure that whatever the problem was is resolved, and doing that follow-up. However, a lot of times we're so focused on the statistics. How fast can we help people? How streamlined can we be? Are we looking for a particular type of easy to track ROI that our social media is working, and we miss out on taking that connection to a deeper level. So when that's something that when we're trying to nurture relationships, something that using all of this technology that we're experiencing today and that's going to continue evolving into the future, we've got to be ready to embrace that. So we have to move past those easy statistics and actually dive into what is the right thing for the customer that's going to help make them loyal to us and want to follow us because they're our buddy on Facebook or whatever platform they're using and you are marketing on. Then when we're thinking about that, we're going into the next slide, and it goes into this is what our differentiation strategy is. What can we, whatever we're doing at that level, how can we be different? Are we delighting? You were right, Scott. How can we be delighting them? What is our position in the space that we are in? Well, hi, Leonora. It's good that you're joining us. And that's a wrap for chapters 1 and 2. The other 3 chapters in the first section of the book are equally as powerful. Each chapter ends with some questions to think about from the big picture overview to work with and work from as we're going forward. So thank you very much for that +2. You know, it's so hard. It is so, all this learning and reading, it is so hard for us to be able to find the time and the energy to do this, and this is where a network of people really could help. This is where somebody who you know will not just help you drink the Kool-Aid, but will stand up and provide contrarian opinion for thought-provoking reasons because they actually believe it or some other fashion, and have a few of those people that you can bounce some of these ideas off of would really help in the grand scheme of things. So before, or as we are wrapping up tonight, I would love to hear, Stephanie and Terry, your closing thoughts about this, and then where we can reach you online after the show.
Sure. Go ahead, Terry.
No, you go first. You go first.
Ladies first. Thank you.
You're it, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's really interesting the way that we've kind of brought all this back to understanding yourself and knowing what you know and what you don't know and being willing to go out and find it, because to me that's even though I talk about finance and I try to help business owners create value in a monetary sense, to me that's where the real value lies, not only in the business but also in the person. To the extent that you recognize what it is you do, either as a business or as an individual, that has value for other people, that's step 1. the fact that you're able to identify other people who recognize that same value and then approach those people to be on your team, either as investors or partners or eventual purchasers of your business. To me, once you can put those two things together, that's when you've really connected, like we talked about, knowledge and experience. That's where you can really profit from everything that you've learned and lived in your life. And so I don't know, it ties in really well with me because I love this notion of value, whether we're talking about the monetary value of a business or the value of the knowledge that we've gathered throughout our lives. We need to convert that into some kind of value. So hopefully we'll keep talking about this and we'll find ways, whether it's assessment tools or other mediums to help people do that. But I just wanted to tell everybody, thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to get to hang out live with Terry for the first time. And if anyone is interested in learning more about financeability, the website is coming very soon, but feel free to reach out and circle me because I will be happy to send out as many announcements as people will tolerate once it is actually live. And of course, in my non-fearful way, I would take any feedback that you have as long as it's given in the spirit of helping me and not tearing me down. So,
thank you. What a wonderful golden nugget in its own right. Terry?
Well, I guess I would sum up just saying that the part of this whole conversation that interests me the most is where it's going to go in kind of a synergy direction, and because synergy is how people take what they already know, what they've already learned, and they combine it together to create new ideas and create larger results than they could have done individually. Now, what if they take that now and learn lifetime learning techniques that empower the entire synergistic team, so that they're bringing not just a synergy of knowledge, but a synergy of learning power, learning ability, of a growing ability, and of expanding ability, not just on a intellectual knowledge realm either, but perhaps this is going to have something to do with how people's personal growth takes place in supporting people, learning how to support each other in their journey. And I think that the future of the organization is going to be very much about how this kind of lifetime learning thing is integrated into project management and realization. Well, let's not even call it project management. Let's call it realization of goals, of group goals, and that this so. Consequently, much about this lifetime learning is going to be important to teach people at a younger and younger age and actually get this stuff. So we're not even talking about college. We're talking about getting it into the high schools, junior high, elementary, learning and valuing the lifetime learning meme, you might call it, the whole concept, so that it's really encouraged from a very young age to be a lifetime learner and be always fascinated. And this is why I started the iwondereducation.com project initially, was because that whole sense of wonder that children have, that to me is squashed and killed and ruined by the education system. That's what really has got me just like sort of, we've got to do something about this. And but this whole prospect of making people become lifetime learners shouldn't be that hard, because we veered people away from what I think is already a natural tendency and reconditioned them into this other kind of being that's keeping up with the Joneses and trying to make the paycheck and be responsible and all this stuff. Well, fine, do that, but don't let go of your initial spirit, the flower that's always growing. And so I think that's the takeaway I would leave, is that this is a big future casting that I think what we're talking about is very much an extremely important topic. This whole lifetime learning is kind of the kernel of a big growing movement that I hope will become a trend.
Us too.
Yeah.
How about you, Scott? How would you wrap up?
I don't think that I have anything that I could add to what Terry and Stephanie have said, other than thank you so much for being part of this wonderful discussion. I certainly know that it's food for thought for me. So thank you both.
Yes, so before I throw in my piece, I wanted to shout out Cadwallader, and I've been practicing that, but I don't think I got it right just yet. Her mantra, never be afraid to try something new. And then Ray, he shared, learning new skills helps you grow as a person. Meeting challenges, going outside your comfort zone is like growing another layer of bark. Don't ask me how many rings I have. And then Phil says, you know what? I think we need to start a book club, and I'm in that. And I would totally love to have a book club where we can share books and share ideas, and maybe we're reading different books and report back to each other. Whatever we need to do, let's make that happen. Because that is in the spirit of everything that we are here and what we stand for, and that you can learn from specifically regarding the Jess and Scott show, because from our +2 takeaways to the guests like the wonderful Stephanie and the amazing Terry to join us to talk about topics like this that get the comments all excited and conversations are going on everywhere. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it really shows your sparkle. So the idea of everything that you can do for yourself to find that sparkle and keep it, that is what is going to make you memorable, and that is what's going to make the ability to have it all be fun, and then it's contagious and everybody wants to have that fun. Next week is Earth Day, so be prepared. We're going to do a special Earth Day show. It's going to be quite fun and exciting, so stay tuned for more details about that. And so many takeaways about our show tonight. I snagged a couple as we were going through. My call to action for you, for the Jess and Scott show, shout out, share this event in your streams and shout out your biggest takeaway, and make sure you tag 1 or 2 people that you know would benefit from that takeaway that you have. And let's share this knowledge, let's get this movement going, and let's have a great time doing it together. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Always wanted to say that.
Bye-bye.